simple front-end website and have no server to back it up. All right, so we covered the HTML, and we have our function here, pay with Paystack. And all this simply does, it uses our key, one of our API keys. So I'll go over this again when I'm doing the demo. But we include our API key, and then we collect these parameters from whatever the customer has entered, and we use that to initialize the transaction. So when your customer actually clicks on Pay Now or whatever button is on your website, all of this code will run. It will render Paystack's pop-up for collecting payments. They'll fill out all the information, and then on a successful payment, we will go to your callback function that you'll have specified here, and we'll run whatever logic is in that. All right, so that's pop-up. Again, we're coming back to that in a bit. I just want to go over everything and then show you the demos. So the next payment method is redirect. Similar to pop-up in that you'll get like the same UI, although this will redirect you to its own page, whereas pop-up will just pop up the actual modal on the screen that you're already on. Redirect is used when you are doing if you have a server, as opposed to the first instance where we're just working from the front end, right? So this time I do have a server, and I can initialize my transactions from the server. What's good about this is that you get a little more security, just because all the actions are taking place on your server, and then you are just having the customer pay on the front end. Again, all of this will make more sense once we do the demo. But the flow is similar. You'll have a form on the front end that you use to collect your customer's information. The difference here is that with pop-up, we're doing all of that. Like, they submit their information, we call Paystack to initialize the transaction, all from the client side. This time, we collect the information and send that information over to our server, and we then call Paystack, get what we call an authorization URL, and then that's what you use to display the redirect page to your customers for them to check out. So again, I'm sorry, this may not be making too much sense at the moment, but it will very, very soon. And if you're following along on the actual documentation, you can read here pretty much everything that I'm already saying. All right, I'll just briefly touch on a couple of our other methods, and then I'll come back to pop-up and redirect in more depth. We have the mobile SDKs. As you can imagine, it just lets you integrate Paystack into your mobile apps. Our SDKs currently let you charge cards, but if you want to integrate some of the other payment methods like charging EFT or one of the QR payment methods, you'll still need to do an integration to the API. We have SDKs for Android and iOS currently. We also have a community developed library for React Native. We have one or two, I think, for Flutter. And I believe there's one for Dart as well. There's a page on our documentation that has our libraries, so we can go through that as well. I'm sure some of you are using React or Vue or something. I want to know if there's an easy way for you to integrate with whatever you're already using. So we'll cover that. The Charge API is the server-to-server connection I was talking about before. So with this, you get a lot more control over your integration experience. With the first two payment methods that we mentioned, you're using the Paystack modal, the Paystack checkout, right? So it's Paystack branded, which is great because you get the, if customers are unfamiliar with making payments online or whatever, it helps to have an established brand with a branded checkout so that they know that they have that security of payment when they're going to your website. But you may also have a flow where you would like to own that experience. You would like to control what the UI looks like for your customers when they're making payment, which is where you might want to use the Charge API. So with the Charge API, you're actually making the calls directly from your server to Paystack's server. And we cover some of the use cases here, right? So serving non-smartphone users, maybe people who have phones that can't access the internet. But yeah, so this is an example for mobile money. If you're accepting a mobile money payment in Ghana, so you would collect the phone, the provider, the currency, all of this information, and you would send it over from your server to Paystack server. All right, so in a nutshell, very quick explanations. Those are the 4 major ways that you'll find people integrating with Paystack for accepting payments. So I'm going to take us back to the top now. We're going to talk about pop-up in some more detail, and then we'll go over to redirect and we'll talk about that. Before I do, let me check the chat again. All right. Looks like we're good. Yeah, somebody shared the libraries and plugins link. Thank you very much for that. All right, so I'm going to share a different tab with you now. And let me make sure we can all see that. So we should be able to see my code sandbox now. I'm going to actually have this open in a new tab, just so that we have some space to see what's actually in the editor. So I'm just going to close this right now if I can. Here, let's just, oops, that's the wrong button. All right, we'll just minimize that. Okay, so going over what I have set up here very quickly, as you can see, just one index.html file. I put my JavaScript in the same file as well, just for brevity. But you can see here that I've set up a very simple form with the ID of payment form, right? Walking through the code, I have an input where I collect the email address. I have another input for collecting amount, another input for first name, for last name, just to get some extra information about the customer. And then I have the pay button. It's important to note that with Paystack, when you're initializing transactions, there are 2 parameters that we require for every transaction, and those will be the email and the amount. There are a bunch of other optional parameters, but these 2 are the 2 that you have to have. If you're using pop-up, if you're using redirect, whatever it might be, those are the 2 things that we need for every transaction. So we're collecting those here, and then we're collecting the name of the customer as well. All right, and I'm going to step into our JavaScript now. So you can see I've included the script to include Paystack. Inline is what we called the library originally. So there may be a little confusion. We call it pop-up now, but pop-up and inline are essentially referring to the same thing. All right, so in my JavaScript here, you can see I have my payment form. I'm getting the payment form by its ID that I specified earlier. And I'm adding an event listener such that when the form is submitted, this pay with Paystack function runs. So this is what we want to take a look at. This is where all the magic is happening, right? We have let handler equal Paystack pop.setup, and this is what sets up everything for our transaction. You can see here that I have PK test. This is my my public key. So I'm going to switch over to my dashboard for a second just to explain that. All right, and I just want to ask at this point if anybody has any questions or if anything so far is confusing. I've been talking a lot, so I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. If anything is confusing, please just drop a message in the chat, and I will take a look and answer your questions. All right, so we're on my dashboard. And I'm coming over here very quickly to get my API keys. But yeah, this is your Paystack dashboard. So when you sign up, this is where you'll get redirected to. It gives you views for your transactions, your customers, your payouts, disputes, a whole host of other things that are beyond the scope of this call. But hopefully we'll go over them on a future call. Right now, all I really want to get is my API keys, right? So I've logged in, I go to preferences and API keys and webhooks. And you'll see you have 2 sets. You have live keys and you have test keys. When you first sign up, you will probably just have test keys. You have to complete your compliance requirements and a couple of other things before you can enable live mode for your integration. But once you sign up, you can get your test keys and you can start playing around and doing things while you're waiting for all of that to go through. So this is where I grabbed my API key, my test public key. And I'm going to take a second here to explain the difference between the secret and public keys that we have here. Public keys we can use with pop-up. They're a little, not less secure, but if your public key gets compromised, for example, we never want our keys to get compromised, but if your public key were to get compromised, it's not as dangerous for you, the merchant or the developer, because with public keys, you can only initialize transactions. So basically, if anybody gets your public key, all they can really do with it is make money for you. So it's fine if they want to do that, right? With your secret key, that has a lot more access. Secret keys give access to everything on your Paystack integration. So if somebody has access to that, then they can view all your information. They can basically take any action that you would as the owner of that integration. So you always want to make sure that you keep your secret keys, keep all your keys secure, but particularly your secret keys. You don't want those to get into the wrong hands. All right. So back to our integration. I grabbed my public key from here, and switching back over to Code Sandbox, I entered it right here. All right. In the next two lines, I'm grabbing the email address and I'm grabbing the amount. And you can see I'm multiplying the amount value here by 100. And the reason that I'm doing that is because the Paystack API treats values in terms of the, not lowest common denominator, the smallest unit for that currency, right? So here in Nigeria, it's, our currency is Naira, the lowest denomination is Kobo. In South Africa, it's Rand and cents. So if I were to pass a value of 1,000 to the Paystack API, Paystack will, to Paystack, that's 10 Rand, right? Because it will take off two of the zeros, because that's 1,000 cents, not 1,000 Rand that I passed. So that's why I'm multiplying the value by 100 here, just to make sure that Paystack recognizes what I'm trying to pass to it. I've also specified the currency to be ZAR. And then this is an optional step. Both of these parameters, actually. So you remember I said email and amount are necessary. If you're using pop-up, your key is also necessary. Otherwise, you'll get an error message saying you haven't passed an API key. Currency, you don't have to pass, but I find it better to just pass it all the time. It's an optional parameter, but it makes it easier if you are trying to debug your code later to know that you are passing the right currency. And then ref is for the transaction reference. So for every transaction on Paystack, it will have a unique reference, and you can either generate that reference yourself, or Paystack can generate the reference on a transaction for you. So in this case, we're generating our own reference by just using the math.random function. Ideally, you will want a better way of creating references for your integrations. We've also passed a couple of functions here as well, onClose and callback. As you might imagine, onClose will run if we close the payment modal, and callback runs after a successful payment. All right, so that's the code. I'm going to go ahead and show what this looks like when we run it. So let me share this tab instead. And this is what we got from the code that we just wrote, right? So we have our email address, our amount, first name, and last name. And I'm just going to go ahead and enter my dummy data here. And take notice of this, right? So I'm passing 100 here because for my customer, I don't want my customer to enter. I would expect my customers, the value they're entering to be in Rand, right? Not in cents. But I know that Paystack wants cents. So that's why in my code, I'm multiplying this value by 100 so that Paystack still understands that it's 100 Rand that I want. All right, so I filled out the form. Go ahead and click pay. And here we go. So this is the payment modal that I've spent so much time talking about. As you can see, like I said, we get a bunch of different payment methods here. I can pay with card. I can pay with EFT. I can pay with MasterPass. We even show you all MasterPass enabled apps here so that you know which apps that you can use with this. And then you can also pay with SnapScan as well. So this is test mode. We have some sample cards that you can use. There's more of this on the documentation, more test information. But I'm just going to go ahead and click on success here and run a successful transaction. And boom, my payment has been successful. And remember, this was as a result of the code that we had in our callback function. So the code I had there said to alert payment complete and then the reference of the transaction that we just paid for, which is this right here. So essentially that callback function is where you would want to run your post-payment logic, right? So if you want to redirect your customer to a different page after they pay, or send them off to some other service that you're running to say that this customer has paid, it's also a good place to verify the status of the transaction, because that's another important step. Is after a payment has been done, you'll want to sometimes make another call to verify that, okay, yes, this payment is successful, and then I can go ahead and deliver value to my customer. We'll talk about that a bit more in when we get to redirect. Okay, so again, let me just switch over here, see if we have any questions for me. Okay, I see we've got for the form, can you use Google Forms? Technically, yes, I think you can. You could definitely do it through like an integration like Zapier, I'm sure, where like a Google Form submission could trigger a payment link to be sent to somebody. So I think that could work. Yeah.
Tulo, we've got a hand from Kundeteri.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing that open queue. Hi. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Hello. I hope everyone is doing okay. I just want to ask with the pop-up that you just showed us now, like, is that available only in English, or if I'm in Mozambique, I can be able to set the language to Portuguese or French or any other language?
That is a good question. It is only available in English currently, but that's something that we should bring up with the team. I think we should work on that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions before I continue? Yes.
There's Msingati.
Yeah. Hi, please go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Maybe it was a mistake.
Okay. Msingati, if it was a mistake, please lower your hand. Otherwise, you can ask a question. All right, we'll get back to you.
All right. Oh, the hand's up again. Okay. Well,
hey guys,
let me know if
sorry.
I should stop. I'm going to jump into.
Just
okay.
I got disconnected. Yeah. So I have two questions that I have with me, right? Hi everyone. So one of the questions that I actually have, I just wanted to understand exactly what's the difference between Paystack and like, or rather like what would make me choose Paystack over like, local payment gateways like Ozo and like Peach Payments? Because obviously I'm assuming that you guys are like, accepting like, transactions like any other payment gateway. So why would I actually want to go and choose like Paystack?
That's a good question. So for me, I mean, I think that the offerings that, hold on, and let me share my dashboard again. Oh, it's saying that he left the meeting, Mixo.
I think we can go ahead since it's recorded. We can go ahead.
Okay.
I'm still here.
Oh,
okay. Sorry, I guess you were signed in.
Your devices.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, and Joel, if you have anything to add to this part as well, I'll give you a chance to speak. But good. For me, okay, yeah. I mean, for me personally, I feel like the ease of development with Paystack is one of the reasons that I prefer. It's super simple to get started. We have extensive documentation that makes it very, very easy for you to get up and running and like have actual functioning, like a functioning project or something within 30 minutes. I also think that and I'm going to go to our libraries for this part. Give me 1 second.
All right, cool.
I think that we cover a lot of use cases, or not use cases, but like we have a solution essentially for any platform that you're going to be trying to integrate on, or most of the platforms that we use on the continent, right? So in terms of our libraries, we have SDKs for iOS and Android. We've got PHP, Node, Angular, React, Flutter, Go, healthy community maintained libraries, and plugins. We've also covered WordPress, Shopify, Ecwid, Magento, PrestaShop. So we have a bunch of options for any of the platforms that you're going to be integrating with. And yeah, Joel, I'm gonna let you add to that if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a good question. So I think you mentioned Ozo and Peach. So Ozo is actually built into Paystack. So we actually integrate with Ozo for EFT payments.
Okay.
For Peach, I mean, so before I answer this, like, I'll just say, I even know people at Peach. Like, I don't want to bash any payment providers. I think Peach has done a really amazing job for South Africa.
Yeah.
A few areas where I think we're maybe a bit better is one, just helping merchants get started. So just being able for merchants to sign up and get activated within 5-10 minutes without any emailing, without calling, without requesting integration docs. So, and I think depending on what you're trying to do, some platforms like PayU or Peach have monthly fees to access certain features, whereas we don't, right? So if you're trying to build something or you're just playing around, like there's nothing to get in your way of just signing up and getting started. Yeah, I think a lot of the other things might be more like Tolu mentioned, integrations or specific libraries that we have that maybe Peach or other providers don't. But I think a lot of the other things is like subtleties, like the UX experience within the dashboard, things like that, which maybe don't sound super important, but at the end of the day, anyone trying to accept payments wants the highest conversion rate. And I think like you want to create as like frictionless and beautiful experience as possible for your as a merchant, so that you make more money. So that's my answer. Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, cool. Now that helps a lot because the reason I wanted to extend my question is because I've actually played around with Stripe, and obviously I know that you guys were actually acquired by Stripe about a year ago or something, right? So with that being said, obviously Stripe actually enables developers to be able to to integrate payment gateways on their websites, and majority of our current gateways in South Africa, they don't allow developers to be able to to integrate it. Does Paystack actually offer that that gap in the market to be able to for developers to be able to integrate payment gateways within their websites without having to reach out for support? You can actually integrate it yourself as a developer. Does it allow that feature? Because I know obviously Stripe doesn't really work in South Africa, so that's what I'm asking.
So when you say without reaching out for support, could you elaborate?
So basically what I mean is, I know that for a lot of gateways, for example, PayFast, you need to kind of integrate it using the help from the guys specifically, right? Like Joel said, obviously you need to kind of reach out and wait, all those kind of things. Whereas if you're a developer and you actually saw using Stripe, well, obviously we can't use Stripe in South Africa because it's not really working. So I know that with Stripe as a developer, you can just easily do your own setup without having to to worry about all that back and forth communication. So I'm assuming that obviously Paystack would allow that as well, considering the fact that you guys were actually acquired by Stripe. And I'm assuming that, do you guys also use the same platform, or I just need to understand more about that. How do you guys bridge that gap? Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So yes, I think to answer the first part of your question, yes, with Paystack, you don't need to talk to me or anyone on my team before you get started, right? As soon as you signed up for your account on Paystack, you do everything from your board. So you'll be able to start playing around in test mode and everything. You'll have that from the word go. The only thing that we require you to provide before you go live is compliance documentation, and that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Standard. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, cool. That's fine. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Tommy.
No problem. Any other questions before I want to jump over to redirect, but I'm checking the questions. So if anybody has one before we go back, let me check.
Looks like there's some questions around Django or Python.
It says it can, but I don't see any examples because the Django things can get tricky with the setting.py script. It sounds like we'll have to look into something. Can we, Jerry, maybe you can send me an email about this, or I'll talk about our developer Slack as well after this. So maybe we can, you can send me a message from there or something afterwards. Yeah, because we may have to look into this a bit. All right, cool. Okay, so we've covered pop-up. I'm going to spend a little time going over redirect as well. Give me 1 second, my container hibernated. Let me go ahead and share that tab. Okay, well, the container is back, but it doesn't seem to be aware that it is. 1 second, let's refresh the page. All right, here we go. So again, I'm going to open this in a different window so that we can have a better look at the code. All right, so what I've done for this is I've just used Code Sandbox to set up a small Express app, and using that, I'll walk us through my setup for collecting payments using redirect and using the Initialize Transaction endpoint on Paystack. So very quick over the setup. I've required Express and a few other libraries. I'm using the Node Fetch library to make my API calls. And then, yeah, the rest of the Express setup. This is the first part of interest to us, line 13. So this is initialized transaction. And I actually think I can share this. Let's see, copy sandbox link, because I would love for you guys to be able to take a look while I'm working on this. So I think try that link. Let me know if it doesn't work. I think there's another place I can share a link from, but you should be able to view the code with that link that I've sent. All right, let's comment that out for a second. Okay, so let me take you over the setup of this really quickly. I've got the initialized transaction endpoint here. And what I've done in my HTML file is I've set up a form again, like I did with pop-up. But as you can see, this time I'm only collecting email and amount because, like I said, those are the two parameters that are always required to collect from the customer, or not from the customer all the time, because amount might be set by you for whatever you're selling on your site, right? So email and amount are the two things that we need. And clicking Pay Now here submits this form to the initialized transaction endpoint that I've set up. So let's go back to that now. And the first thing I'm doing here, you can see, is I'm getting that email and amount value from the body of the request that was made to this endpoint. And important here, I'm multiplying that amount value by 100, because remember, I need it to be in its smallest denomination. So if 100 Rand was passed in, I want to multiply that by 100 to make sure that I have it in cents. And then JSON.stringify the email and amount. I've commented this out. I'll come back to it and explain what it does in a moment. And here I'm making my actual call to the Paystack API. So I'm calling Paystack, and you can see in my headers, I'm passing authorization bearer, and then I have this environment variable that's set to my Paystack secret key. So remember what we said earlier is that if I'm using pop-up and I'm integrating on the front end, I can use my public key, because even if somebody inspects the HTML for that page and is able to see that key, it's not a concern, because even if they get that key, all they can do is initialize more transactions for me. But here I'm using my secret key because we're doing this from the server. I know I'm doing it from Code Sandbox, so it's not like it's my server, but you get the gist. So make the API call, and then I get the response. The fetch library works kind of funny, so you need to make sure that the response is okay before you actually try and get the values from the result. And I think it's because when you use that library, it doesn't account for network errors or something like that. But anyways, you can see right here, I'm getting the result. And if the result status is true, then I'm redirecting to this result.data.authorization URL. So I spoke about this a bit before, but I'll go through the flow again. Whenever I make this call to Paystack's API, to the transaction initialize endpoint, if everything that I've passed is correct, if my key is correct, I have the amount, I have the email, Paystack will respond with an object that contains three things. So there'll be an access code. We don't need to worry about that right now. There'll be a reference for the transaction. If I didn't pass the reference myself, Paystack will have generated that reference for me. And then there'll be the authorization URL. And the authorization URL is what we're most interested in. This is the URL that we redirect our customer to so that they can make payment. So that's what I'm doing right here. And I'm going to go over to the actual demo now. And let's put in an email and an amount. I hit pay now, and I should get redirected. Here we go. So I did it in the same tab. I didn't open another window. And so it's the same form, but now it's on its own page as opposed to it overlaying on top of the page that I clicked the button from. We still get all our payment methods here, and I can still go ahead and process my transaction. There you go. So in a nutshell, that's how redirect works. There are a lot of other things that you can add to it, and I just want to briefly go over some of those as well. So I'm back on the documentation. This is the API reference. And under transactions, I've gone to initialize transaction here. And as you can see, amount and email, those are the values I passed. Oh, did I not pass a currency this time? That would be awkward since I said that we should always pass the currency. So yes, don't do what I just did. Pass the currency, it helps. If you don't pass a currency, we'll just use the default currency on your integration. So where was I? Right. So pass the currency, you can pass a reference or we'll generate one. A callback URL. So that's what I commented out. The callback URL is essentially, it's similar to that callback that we had with pop-up, but you know how with pop-up it was an actual function. Here, the callback URL, it can be another page that you just want to redirect someone to. But one thing that it's good to do here is to redirect to another route on your server, and that might be where you'll verify your transaction. So that step that I mentioned earlier, where you determine the status of your transaction, you can do that here. So basically the flow would be that customer checks out, and then after that success page that we saw, where is it? After this page, Paystack will try and send the browser to whatever URL you specified as your callback URL. So when redirected there, you can then call Paystack's API using the transaction reference to verify the status of the transaction and then provide value to the customer as you're supposed to, be that fulfilling an order or sending an order out for delivery, whatever it might be. There are some other parameters here that you can check out. Plan is if we were using subscriptions, we would pass a plan code. But again, we can get into that in a future session maybe. Another one that's important is channels. So you can specify what channels you actually want to make available on your checkout. So these are all the values that you can pass. And you can see if I were to have added channels here, and I set it to an array that just had card in it. Let me save this. And let's load this again. I'm just going to load this in this window, actually. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sharing this tab. Okay, so I've added channels as card here. Now, ideally, when I try and check out, I should only get the option to pay with my card. So let's see if this works as expected. There you go. So you can see no other payment options are being displayed to me because I've said card only. So only card shows. So this can be useful if you only want to accept certain types of payments for something. You can only present that payment method. Yeah, oh, I think I've gone a bit over my time. So I'm going to stop now with the demo and give us time to ask questions. I think there have been some questions that have been coming in the chat. So I'll start with those, and then if we have more questions, we can take those. So card information, do we keep card information? Yeah, so Paystack is PCI DSS level 1 certified, which means that we basically have the certification required to store and transmit card information. So yes. Okay. Let me see.
Pride. So
Yeah,
we've got
Pride has a question.
Pride has his hands up.
Yeah. Yes, Pride.
Just a question there. So you said you keep card information, right?
Mhm.
Does the developer have access to it? Let's say I had an app, right? Let's call it Amazon, for example, right? Then I'm using Paystack as a gateway. Can I allow my customers to store the card information on my site, obviously through Paystack? Then later on, I could like retrieve them.
Yes. So yes, in a way. What we do let you do is you don't get access to the raw card information, but we essentially tokenize the card information on your behalf. So when a customer pays you, there's an authorization object that gets returned in the response from whenever you initialize a transaction. This authorization object contains information about the transaction and about the financial instrument that was used for that transaction. So if it's a card, we'll return information like the last four, the country the card is from, the card brand, and then most importantly, the authorization code. So the authorization code is what then goes on to represent that card on your integration. So what you would actually store would be the code and the whole authorization object. And then if you wanted to charge that card in the future, you can just send the authorization code along with the customer's email. So you as the developer don't get actual access to like the card details itself, but you can charge that card again or present it as a payment option to somebody who's visiting your website for the second time.
Awesome, thanks.
No problem.
All right. We've got Mukhadi's hand up.
Yes.
Hey, thanks. I actually just want to ask, because I had two of the reasons why I wanted to switch. I currently use PayFast as my payment gateway. Why I wanted to switch, I couldn't actually make the transition because of that. So the one was I currently run a subscription type of business. And I saw on your subscriptions, I think the minimum that you can charge is 100 Rand. Is there like a specific, is there any way to kind of bypass that if you have subscriptions which are below that? And then the other thing that I was very interested in was the fact that you could make payouts. So if you've got people, your clients who've got a bit of money in their account and you want to make payouts, you don't have to necessarily go and make an actual EFT to them. You can pay out, but I see that's also not available for South Africa. And then just for the, I saw some of the questions on Django where they were asking, can you integrate that? Yeah, you can definitely do that. Django is like my framework of choice. And the method you were using just now, the direct one, would work perfectly with that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm not strong with Python, so glad that you took that one for me. Thank you very much. For your other questions, yes. So payouts or transfers, not live with that yet in South Africa, but we're working on it and hopefully will be soon. As for the minimum amount, are you saying that you are able to charge a smaller amount on other transactions, but only for subscriptions you could charge 100?
So I checked. So I went into your documentation for subscriptions, recurring payments. Yeah. The minimum amount for that. So you need to create. You go onto your platform and then you create a subscription plan, and then from that, people then subscribe to that plan, which is fine. The model's a bit different to what it's currently at PayFast, but which is fine. The only problem was that the minimum amount has to be 100 Rand.
Has to be 100 Rand. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that and get you an answer later. I honestly I haven't tried that myself, so I wasn't aware that there was a limitation on it. Joel, I don't know if you know anything about that, but if not, I'll try it myself and I'll get back to you with an answer.
Yeah. So there shouldn't be a limitation on that, but I wonder, Tolu, if maybe in some way we've set it at 100 Naira or something like that in our.
And so we're just moving it over, maybe.
Yeah, let me drop my email
Or
address.
maybe it's Naira. I saw just 100. Oh, yeah, maybe it's not South African thing.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it was Naira then. Because yeah,
Okay.
100 Rand would be ideally it shouldn't. So we do have a limit in place for Nigeria where you can't charge less than 100 Naira. Like we set a limit, but it wouldn't make the sense to have the same limit for Rand. So I'll set up myself.
Okay, cool.
and
It's
see.
possible.
Yeah.
I'll just send you the link of where that I saw that minimum. Cool.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we've got Mr. Dumela who's got a question. But Joel, can you just answer the two questions on the chat regarding Paystack in Botswana, and then regarding the internships, while Tulo just takes while Mkoniteri takes us through his question.
Yeah, happy to do that.
Thanks, Joe.
Mr. Dumela.
Oh, does he not have a question anymore? He might have taken his hand down.
All right.
Oh, I'm
Singa-
sorry, I'm actually talking on mute. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah,
No
no, so I
problem.
have two questions. Like, I'm new to Paystack. I'm currently using it for a new project I'm working on. Yeah,
Okay.
like it's still in the test phase. And I was having some issues trying to understand how international payments work. And what I
Okay.
was told when I contacted Paystack was Paystack first needs to monitor my local transactions, but I'm not exactly sure what I should be aiming for internally. And because of that, I'm not able to plan properly. So like I was just wanting to get an understanding of what exactly Paystack needs to look at, so that it's easier to plan from like from my side. And then the second question is regarding customers. So I also have a similar business model to that of Muhadi. And what I want to understand is, I understand there is like you can use an email address to create a customer, and then Paystack will return a customer code. But is it possible to change that email address and still maintain the fact that it's still the same customer, so that when I go to Paystack, like on the dashboard, like I should still be able to see this is the same person, even though the email address is changed.
Customer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the first question was about essentially what will Paystack be monitoring for that we will say like, okay, yes, you're okay for international transactions, right?
Yeah.
And then second one is, can I change a customer's email address, like on their subscription or something like that?
Yeah.
For the first one, I'm going to defer to Joel again. Again, I'm mostly on the technical side, so I don't know what our reviews team exactly would be looking for on your integration. I'm hoping maybe he can shed some light on that.
Sorry, Tolu, I was answering chat questions. Is the question about compliance?
About international payments.
Okay.
So yeah, so he was saying he needs an international payments enabled for his business. But when he reached out, he was told that we would essentially need to just monitor his integration for a while.
Before allowing it. Yeah. So I guess to be transparent about this, it's something that we're thinking about for South Africa. Like right now, we don't enable it automatically, but one thing that we've seen in South Africa is there's a lot of, even if you're not selling to international clients intentionally, there's a lot of people using international cards like myself. I use my US card, but I live in Cape Town. So it's actually quite important for South African merchants to have international card acceptance. So, but it is an added risk for Paystack, so it's something that we're looking at. We may enable it for all South African merchants. Right now you have to request it. So if, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name of the person that asked the question, but if it's something that's getting in the way of you doing business, it's causing you any trouble, feel free to drop me an email. I've shared my email address, and it's something that we can look at. But right now, it's a case by case kind of thing that our reviews team looks at whether or not they'll enable it. So that's pretty much all I can share for now.
I'll definitely drop you an email.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Joel. And then to the second question, so if you've created the short answer is no. Essentially, email addresses have to be unique and tied to a certain person. So if you've created a recurring charge using a customer's email address, you can't change the email address that is on that recurring charge, right? So ideally, if I understand the situation that you're trying to solve for, because I think I've been in a similar one before, you would want to have, I guess, an email identifier for your customer on your end that is somewhat separate from that identifier that end. So using myself as an example, if I were to sign up on your platform, and you are now billing me recurringly, you've used my email tolu@paystack.com to start that recurring charge, right? You can't then change tolu@paystack.com to like joel@paystack.com, right? Because that tolu@paystack.com is an essential part of that recurring charge. But if I'm trying to change my email on your platform, I can understand why you would want to be able to change that on the Paystack end as well. But unfortunately, what you would want to do there is like allow emails to be changed on your end, but know that it's still tied to the same, whatever the first email was that I entered on the Paystack end. Does that make sense? It's important to note that like the email address is essentially just like, it's an identifier, right? So some people don't even use email addresses, but you need to just provide something in the email format, right? So they may use a phone number at mybusiness.com or whatever, just so that it creates a unique token on the Paystack end that you can use to identify that person. So I think something similar could work in your case, where maybe if you have a customer ID or something for that person on your end, you use that customer ID as their email on the Paystack end. So it'd be customer ID at yourcompanyname.com. So that way, even if they change their email on your platform, it's still tied to the same email on Paystack's end, right? Because it's really just like a token that you're using to identify those transactions.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Does that make sense?
Just a follow-up question, like on that. So, is there a way with Paystack to specify where you want the invoice to go? So, like, if I have, like, let's say I can manage to make the changes on my side so that when someone updates their email, I can keep two references for the old email and the new one. When they get invoices, would it still be going to the old one, or is there a way for me
to
to
the old
say it?
one?
Okay. Okay, no, thanks.
I think it will go to the old one, yeah. But you can also disable transaction receipts on the Paystack end. So if you wanted to, you could disable those receipts and then send like your receipts instead, so that you can update it and send it to your new email address.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
All right.
Cool. So before we take Msingati's question, we have run out of time. So just want to thank everybody for coming through for this session. Really appreciate it. We'll send the recording to you guys, and there will be obviously follow up meetups of these sessions of this type. But those who still want to stay just to get their questions answered, please feel free to stay. Otherwise, to everybody else, thank you very much for coming through. Highly appreciated.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks, Misha. Hi everyone. Once again. So this question is actually not really like technical now. It's more like business centric. I just want to understand exactly. Obviously, with there's a report that was actually released sometime in October last year, where it says that there's about 50% of the Nigeria's economy is actually made up of like the informal sector. So I just want to understand exactly how has Paystack done within that market in terms of like adoption, because obviously you're still going to get people who are actually reluctant to go digital, because I know here in South Africa as well, there's still like old businesses that still want to rely on cash or like just using your POS. So I just want to understand exactly like what's the adoption rate in terms of like that 50% of like the informal sector within Nigeria, and also like just trying to see exactly how that would actually look in South Africa as well.
That is a really, really good question. That I did not come prepared to answer, but I can try. No, because the informal sector in Nigeria is like people have been trying to crack it for like years, right? But they're just people who are just more comfortable having their cash, or working with like there's a company here called Paga, and they have like agents that they send out to help people like change cash in remote areas and stuff like that. So it's just difficult to crack. I think people are tied into the ways that they do things, and they don't want to change. I feel like we are trying to. We recognize that like online payments is our thing, and so we're like focused on online payments, but we do want to get into some of these other spaces as well, right? So we're working on like we have we only offer them in Nigeria at the moment, but we have like our own POSs that we're putting out, and we're trying to get greater adoption of in the market and everything. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how one tackles that sector. The Nigerian government is still trying to figure it out, and I'm not sure they have. So if we can figure it out before then, we'll be good, I think.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
Thanks, Toby.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's a question from Peter.
Yes.
Sorry, Tuli. It's just to add, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I mean, it's just to add to, I mean, what you just said. Like you said, I mean, it's a very interesting question. I just felt I wasn't just adding one or two things. I think interestingly, one of the things you would notice is even the regulators themselves are actually pushing, for more financial inclusion, right? So you are seeing more of adoption, of cards, of payments. I mean, across board. I know in South Africa, for example, I know financial inclusion is down, and financial exclusion, sorry, for example, is extremely down. I think maybe 1 or 2%, right? So a lot of people are already, getting more financially included. And also, one of the things you see is around initiatives, just to drive more people to use more digital payments. So a good example would be the fact that Africa, for example, has the highest amount of people who trade cryptocurrencies, right? Nigeria, South Africa, right? So it tells you that adoption is picking up. Also, the fact that you see that there's also a new thing around central bank digital currencies. Which Nigeria, I know South Africa is also on board, Ghana is also on board. So you can gauge to a certain extent that everybody's going online, right? And also to a large extent is the fact that I think the good thing would be to focus on SMEs, because like you rightly said, SMEs, I think in Nigeria, for example, SMEs are responsible for about 90% of the country's entire GDP, right? So what that tells you is that, for Paystack, for example, that's a good opportunity, because as you keep focusing on the small businesses, you to a large extent start to include all those, in quote, informal people, because in the end, if a small business is the only way to pay me is this method, I mean, at a certain point, you would have to also adjust.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Peter.
Awesome stuff. Not sure if there's any other following up questions, but maybe Joel, Tulo, what are some of the plans that you guys have for the South African dev space going forward?
I want to ask you guys. I mean, so I want to do as much, meeting and greeting and events like this as possible. I actually came down and spent a little while in South Africa a couple of months ago. I'm very anxious to come back. I didn't get to do as much as I hoped to then, but I would love to come back, spend some time meeting more developers, more developer communities, and seeing, I guess, really what it is that developers would like to see from Paystack that they're not already seeing from established payment providers in South Africa, and see how we can help out.
Awesome stuff. So I guess it's on you guys to help in terms of what is it that you'd like to learn, what is it that you'd want more sessions on, and then we'll definitely engage the Paystack team, and then we can just put it together and make it happen. Yeah,
we need to. I've really enjoyed this, to be honest. So I would really love if we did some more of these. I think it would be great. And I don't know if I meant to share the link, but I hope I'm getting it right. Or Joel, did you share the Paystack link by any chance?
I did, but let's share it one more time.
Paystack.com, I think.
So much engagement. Here it is.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah, there you go. It's just slack.paystack.com.
So yeah, join that. I mean, tag me if you have any questions about anything, or if you just want to talk about anything. Please join. Please reach out. Other members of my team are in there as well, and we're always on hand to help out with issues. Or, like I said, if you just have more questions, we're down to have more conversations about how to reach the be financially excluded. So I'm down for it.
Great. So,
Anyone else?
we got one more hand from Samad.
Yeah, sure. You can go ahead.
Samad.
Right. Hello everyone. I was going to ask, how does Paystack work with like marketplace integrations?
Sorry, Samad, I'm having a bit of trouble hearing.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I was saying, how does Paystack integrate with marketplaces, like where you have like three parties, like splitting payments? How does it work? Does it have like, do you have to manually disburse all the money to like all the parties, or it can be done automatically with Paystack?
It can be done automatically. So we offer split payments. And for a long time, you could only split like between your Paystack settlement account and one other account, but we added multi-splits within the last year. And what that essentially lets you do is just, you can add multiple sub-accounts on your Paystack integration, and then you can set up your integration such that you split the funds across several sub-accounts. So you can choose to split by percentage or by a flat fee. You can choose how many sub-accounts you want to split it with. You can choose who bears the transaction fees. So if you're building a marketplace type solution, sub-accounts is one way that you can do that. Another way, and this I guess won't be available for South Africa yet, but it's something that we're working on, would be to use the transfers or the disbursements product. That one is different in that with sub-accounts, you can automate such that at the time of the transaction, the split happens. If you were to use our transfers product, it would be different in that you would still do your transactions normally, but then the onus would be on you to then say, okay, maybe at the end of every week or whatever your schedule is with your vendors and your marketplace, I'm going to pay them out. And so then you would add them as transfer recipients, and then whenever you need to pay them out, make a payout from your Paystack balance to their bank accounts. So that all of that you can do now if in Nigeria, but not in South Africa yet. Does that answer the question?
Nice. Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Can I just ask on top of that? So when you're saying paying out, when you transfer, it doesn't have to be. So with the sub account, the person would have to have a what do you call this? A Paystack account. So let's say I'm registering, I'm running a. Oh no.
No, for sub accounts, you're adding actual bank accounts. So the person you're adding doesn't have to have a Paystack account. I can quickly show you guys if we have time. I don't mind.
That's what works now. Currently, that does work now. You can add someone.
That does work now. Yeah. Yeah, that does work now. Let me show you very, very quickly.
Isn't that essentially a okay? Let
me show you if this loads. Okay, so you can see these are my sub accounts for my South African integration, and I've added so Vendor 2, Vendor 1, Branch 2, and Joel Inc. That's this Joel, by the way. But yeah, essentially you add a sub account, and so it has its code. This is the split that I've agreed with this account. So now if I'm initializing a transaction, all I need to do is add this code as the sub account on the transaction that I'm initializing. So when that transaction now comes in, whatever amount it was that I requested will get split. 50% will go to my main account, my settlement account, and then the other 50% will go to this sub account that I've specified here. Does that make sense?
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So that can essentially work as a payout as well as transfers, because you're paying to their exact account. It's not necessarily.
Yeah, it could, and you can do 100% to that account as well. So if you wanted to, you could set up an account, a sub account, have 100% of transactions go to it, and then any transaction you add that code to. Yeah. Okay, the 100% of the funds will go there.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. There is a comment from Mr. Ifepe. So with regards to someone who's not necessarily technical, so he is requesting if the documentation can be made, much more understandable. But yeah, so I mean, if someone comes in, and we've also obviously been talking to devs in this session, someone who's not a developer and is an entrepreneur, or not necessarily technical, what are they able to do?
Sure. So, and that could be a whole other session on its own, to be honest. But I will briefly try and get into it. So one thing that we've tried to do at Paystack is recognize that there are a lot of people who need to accept payments, want to use Paystack, but they don't have either the time or the technical knowledge to, get started integrating redirect or pop-up or something like that. So we have a whole range of commerce tools. Right here, we've got payment pages, products, storefronts, orders, and invoices. These are all things that you can use right from the Paystack dashboard, and you don't need to do any coding to use them at all. Payment pages are very straightforward. They're like payment links. And essentially, sorry, my internet is going a little slow. You create a page. It's like a form builder, right? So you just we'll put first name, last name, email, and amount. But then you can also add on custom fields if you want. So let's see if I have any on this one. What do I have here? Okay, so I've created the page. You get all these options. If you want to redirect after payment, you can show a success message, send notifications to a particular email, and then you can add your extra fields. So I'm just going to add test field there. And then I can view this page. And so this is that page. Paystack took care of creating this. Oh, I wrote test feed. But yeah, this is created for me without having to code anything. And I get this link, and I can just share this link with anybody that I want to pay me. And they can come to this form, fill out all the info. I don't need to fill it. I do need to fill it out. And they can pay, and you can see we're using pop-up here to complete the transaction. So you can use that, if you can't use redirect or pop-up. We also have our storefronts and product links, both for selling products. We had product links at first, which are just these beautifully designed pages. Shout out to our design team, that help you sell products, just one product at a time. So one page for each product. And then we took that a step further and created storefronts, which is like a mini storefront that you can sell products on. I don't know, do I have any products on this page? Let's see. Okay, I do. So let's preview this. Yeah. So this is just like a small test storefront I have for selling linen clothing, because Nigeria is hot, and so it makes sense to wear linen. But yeah, so if you don't have, technical knowledge, if you don't know how to build your own e-commerce store, if also, you're not ready for an option like Shopify, where you're paying a monthly fee, you don't have a WordPress setup, so you can't use WooCommerce, but you're looking for something that makes it easy for you to just get up and running and selling products as quickly as possible. We've created some of those tools for you. So switching back to the dashboard, that was payment pages, that was storefronts. Orders goes hand in hand with products and storefronts. We just let you manage the orders that you've received either on a storefront or for a specific product link. And then our invoices let you send out simple invoices to customers. You can request a payment, and I think we offer 2 templates, one for a professional invoice, one for a simple invoice. So again, these are great tools if you don't have the technical know-how to build your own integration, and you also are not ready for investing in like a full-fledged tool that, there's tools that are specifically for invoicing or specifically for e-commerce that offer a lot more than what we have here. But these are good to get you off the ground before you're ready to advance to one of those tools.
All right.
And yeah, all free. Once you sign up to Paystack, you get access to all of these things. The only thing, Paystack just charges regular transaction fees. For the storefronts and stuff, you can change the colors. One of the highest requested things I think that we get for storefronts is adding more custom styles. So right now you can change colors, but I know people want to add logos, change the fonts, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think it'd be great for us to add as we go forward. So yeah.
Okay, awesome stuff. See, there's no more questions. I think we can close it here. Thank you, guys.
Sorry, if you don't mind, Mixer. Someone asked if we have YouTube channel tutorials, and I just quickly wanted to address that. We're working on more developer content videos. We don't have a bunch of them out right now. What we do have on our YouTube is, like, for all these tools that I just went over, if you're using Storefronts, we have a video that walks you through how to use Storefronts, walks you through the dashboard, all that kind of stuff, walks you through installing some of our plugins. But for, like, you know, coding tutorials or stuff like that using Paystack, my team's working on getting some of those out in the public for you guys to start using very soon.
All right, that's cool. I see Peter showing a hands up, which is pretty cool. Other than that, guys, thank you very much. Highly appreciate your time, and shows that there's a huge interest for those that actually stayed longer. So we'll definitely have another session. We'll send out the video recording, and some of the links will also be included in the email. And then through that, you'll be able to tell us what else would you like to know. What are some of the things that you still want more sessions on? And we'll just discuss with the team, and then we'll just work on it going forward. Cool. Otherwise, I'm ready to press the drop button. So, guys, good night and keep
Good
well.
night, everyone. Bye.
Cool. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Ooh, someone's switching tonight. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
This is great.
Oh, okay. Can't ask for much
more often.